Hello and welcome to our new video. This is the Philips Series 7000 air fryer. We tested it for you and you'll find out everything you need to know in this video, so stay tuned. Alright, what can already be said is that the Philips 7000 is definitely a real beast, with a power output of 2000 to 2200 watts and a capacity of 8.3 liters. You should be able to prepare up to 7 servings with it. We're a bit skeptical, but nevertheless, the thing is pretty big. Definitely much bigger than a classic air fryer. That's good on its own, but to be honest, it wouldn't be enough for us personally to spend that much money on it. So let's take a look at what else the Philips 7000 has to offer, and we want to start with its operation. And what can we say? The appliance from Philips actually has some pretty good things in store. It features an LED display with touch elements and a rotary knob, which is not just a rotary knob, it's also a button, so you can press it too. The whole thing not only looks nice, but it also allows you to adjust the temperature range from 40 to 200 degrees Celsius and the timer, which goes up to 180 minutes. There's also a shake reminder and a keep warm function included, making it an all-around solid package. That alone is not enough to justify the high price. But that's okay, because it gets a bit more interesting now. Next comes one of the main features. You can choose between 2 fan speeds on the display. And this is what Philips calls the so-called Rapid CombiAir technology. And you can surely guess what that is supposed to mean. The low setting is intended to allow gentle cooking, and the higher setting is supposed to deliver more pressure. In other words, faster cooking times and more crispiness. And please be a little patient to whether that actually works or not. We will take a closer look at the cooking results shortly. Now let's talk about the next topic, which is the presets or the so-called auto-cook programs. There are a total of 8 of these programs available. You just select a symbol using the rotary dial, and off you go. But there's something unique here compared to other air fryers. If you select one of the presets, you will still be prompted, depending on the preset, like about the fill level, quantity, or weight. That is actually particularly interesting because this makes the presets in this case a little bit more precise and at least somewhat less of a guideline compared to other devices. And this is cleverly linked to the NutriU or HomeID app by Philips. You can almost fully control the device through the app. You can set everything here: temperature, time, airflow, start, stop, or pause the cooking process. You can also set schedules for when you want to start and end cooking and so on. That's pretty cool, but you can also select and start the auto-cook programs here. And here's the thing, additional values may be requested if necessary. For example, fries medium 10 by 10 millimeters, or something similar. And with that, these auto-cook programs, combined with the app, become really precise. In summary, Philips is tackling the preset issue that pretty much all air fryers have in a very concrete way, and I must say, they are addressing it quite well. This brings us a little closer to the notion that perhaps the device is worth the money. Besides that, the app also offers a lot of recipes, apparently several hundred, so that's quite decent. The recipes come with step-by-step instructions, and the air fryer is fully integrated here. This means that you can not only see the preparation, but also how to place it in the air fryer. And as a crowning touch, you can even send the settings directly to the air fryer from the recipe and start the cooking process immediately. And that's not all. Supposedly, it is also a learning system, meaning that the recipe suggestions are based on what the user likes to cook. Overall, one can say that this is quite a good digital approach. By the way, if you're interested in the product, check the description below the video. You can find all the links there. Now, let's get to the main part, the cooking results. Here in our test kitchen, we first focused on the basics that most people like to make with these air fryers, and the first stop is of course fries. We achieved a good result. Crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, very potato-like. As with all devices, you need to be a bit careful that the fries do not get too dry, but if done right, you get a good tasty result. The same goes for the chicken nuggets. New in our test are potato wedges, just to try another fresh potato product. The result was good and even. Nicely crispy on the outside, cooked through and fluffy on the inside. And I think you can see it here as well, visually. The whole thing was very appealing. Also new to our test are baked rolls. Many people want to make these in these devices now, and we also achieved a great result here. The rolls were perfectly baked, golden brown on the outside, and hot and fluffy on the inside. We even tested it extra by opening them up. A classic that cannot be missed in such a test are chicken wings, of course. Here we achieved a very appealing result visually. Everything was cooked through and tasted great. There was nothing to complain about. We also continued to bake a few muffins in these devices because many people like to bake with them, and our results are definitely impressive. Nicely baked on the outside with a nice color, They were fluffy and cooked through on the inside, so everything was good here as well. Now let's take a look at the results of the Rapid CombiAir technology. In our opinion, this is one of the most important points when it comes to whether the device is worth its money. Let's start with the low setting. The point here is to cook as gently as possible, so we tried it with a vegetable mix just to get an impression. And we would say it works at least better than in a standard air fryer. It just has a bit less power, so the vegetables dry out less quickly, and it doesn't burn as quickly. Still, you have to be a bit careful, even at a lower setting, by checking in from time to time, just to make sure nothing goes wrong. Okay, let's move on to the higher ventilation setting. This will probably be the most important for most of you. We've noticed a bit of a difference with standard dishes. For example, it seemed to cook a bit faster compared to other devices, and with the chicken wings, we felt they were slightly crispier than usual, but as you can tell, it wasn't significantly noticeable or remarkable. And that prompted us to take a closer look, meaning we decided to test a steak to see how much pressure the high fan speed can really apply. In other words, can it even sear a steak? The result, the top side actually seems a bit better seared than with many other devices. However, when cutting, the internal cooking state seemed a bit behind. And when the steak was then turned over, it was also apparent that it still looked quite pale. We purposely didn't flip it for the test, just to see how the heat is distributed and whether you can turn things less often, like with some other devices, but that was not the case. The top side seemed seared quite well, but all in all this confirms that the higher setting allows for a bit more power and possibly slightly faster cooking times. There is an effect, but it must be said that it is limited. A third ventilation stage plus an expanded temperature range up to, let's say, 240 degrees would have suited the device quite well. Alright, now let's take a closer look at the handling and the overall accessibility. The Philips 7000 series also has a few small special features here, and one of the most important points, in our opinion, is the drawer system. It definitely brings a big advantage with it, and that is that you no longer need coasters. So, in the end, it's definitely much more convenient to work with a drawer system, but unfortunately, it also has some downsides or risks. And by that, I mainly mean the risk that the drawer might break off or that you might get on it and pull the appliance off the worktop or something. So it's just a bit of a risky construction, but, well, you could say that you can still take care of it. But the bottom line is that the construction itself is also a bit wobbly and seems a bit untrustworthy. So that also comes into play. But what bothered us the most was the fact that you have to place the appliance next to the table or worktop in order to use the drawer properly. Because if you just put it in the middle of the table now, which some of you might also want to do at some point, you will only scratch the table. You take out the drawer, which starts to sag a little at some point, and then the front part simply comes into contact with the table. And if you do that a few times, you end up damaging your table. And that is, of course, not so nice. So as you can see, in the end, this drawer system has its advantages, but you can also look at it critically. Then there are a few more points that we noticed, and one of them is the accessories. These are not particularly special. Included are basically just the tub, the basket, and a grid, which you can clip in. So it's not that much, but we noticed there's a connection for a thermometer. Although it is not included, which is a bit of a shame, you have the option to buy it separately, and it opens up new cooking possibilities. That's not a feature that every air fryer brings to the table. Philips also offers a few conveniences, like the cable storage space on the backside. Many devices don't have this, so we find it quite nice and interesting. There's also a small storage space underneath for the thermometer if you decide to buy one. What is also important for you are the dimensions. Since you need to fit the device somewhere, we measured it again, and it measures 35.1 by 33.5 centimeters in length and width, with a depth of 44.7 centimeters. That's certainly not insignificant, so the device is definitely not small. And there's also the fact that these devices, which I always call transportable devices, are the kind that some people might not want to have standing in the kitchen all the time. Instead, they might want to move them around occasionally. And it's really a shame that there are no transportation handles provided for this one. Especially with this device, since it's a bit larger and heavier, around 9 kilograms, it's just a shame that this wasn't considered. Regarding the noise level, we were quite satisfied with the device. It reaches around 60 decibels, maybe a little above, which is definitely manageable. However, the sound does seem quite high-pitched, and occasionally a bit rattling. That's not so great, but to be honest, we're already familiar with that from Philips devices. So, to wrap up, we would like to say a few words about cleaning. And for us, the most important message is that the accessories are dishwasher proof. Unless you've bought an additional thermometer, that shouldn't go into the dishwasher, but generally, the other accessories are good to go. That in itself is, of course, initially good because it saves a lot of time. However, the dishwasher results were overall worse than with most other devices. The basket still came out rather dirty and greasy, and the small attachment part for the basket in the tub turned out to be quite stubborn. So you do indeed have to go over it by hand here and there. And Philips added a little bonus feature called Quick Clean. In the end, this means that in addition to the dishwasher-proof parts, the internal structure of the device should also make the inside of the air fryer easier to clean. And well, what can we say? We see it a bit differently. The bottom part is even harder to clean because there's the rail. This whole setup of the rail is quite convoluted. Admittedly, the upper part is a bit easier to clean because the heating element is protected with this mesh, so you can get to it a bit easier now. But all in all, it's a nice marketing statement, which ultimately doesn't bring much to the table. Okay, now we come to the conclusion. We have a device from the upper price range here, and basically you can say that the Philips 7000 does it justice. It's really fun to work with the appliance, and apart from a few drawbacks, we were very satisfied with the operation. Quite satisfied with the cooking results and also with the handling. What bothered us a bit more was the dishwasher result. Contrary to that, the device showed good heat management and the workmanship was, apart from a few mismatched gaps, very appealing overall. As for the features, which in the end are supposed to justify the higher price, we were divided in opinion, but at least with a positive tendency. Although the effect of the different ventilation levels is somewhat limited, aside from that, as mentioned, the cooking results were good, and the operation with the app integration and the AutoCook programs was next level in our view. Additionally, the device is family-sized and tackles some issues that these air fryers usually bring with them. We therefore think that the device can definitely be recommended. If you are a bit tech-savvy and enjoy getting to know the features and incorporating them into your usage, we believe that you can probably be happy with the device. So, if you're interested in the product, then take a look below the video in the description. You can find all the links there. And if you're still unsure as to which device is the right one for you, then check out this video here. There we compare different devices with each other, and that will surely help you find the right one.